see and hear world-class musicians in a setting that's as intimate and as comfortable as your living room. We give you a chance to get to know the musicians here and also to hear the music the way that it was meant to be heard. We're a listening room. We had our acoustics designed by a protege of the Hollywood director George Lucas, under his guidance, to be the highest quality, unenhanced sound available today. And we're very happy to bring the Justin Barnes Quartet back to the Velvet Note stage after a mild hiatus that we've all been taking. Justin Barnes is an incredible band leader and drummer and educator, and he has a unique ability to give us the historical and cultural context surrounding our greatest jazz artist. And tonight is no exception to that, as he celebrates the music of Herbie Hancock, and specifically Herbie's early work. I had the joy of hearing from Herbie Hancock on Instagram. I know. But apparently he's very excited about this show, so that's a good thing. If you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube and streaming this show live from our living room to yours, we thank you so much. The only reason why we can do this is because you at home tune in and show some love to the band and to the club. And in order to do that, you go to thevelvetnote.com/donate. thevelvetnote.com/donate. And that allows us to continue to stream to you. So thank you. thevelvetnote.com/donate. Whose anniversary is it today?
Oh, it's this.
Oh! I was momentarily thrown off. I thought you had some flowers on your table, did you? Oh, I just can't see them. See, this is what it means to be old. Save your vision while you can. Happy anniversary. Put your hands together for the Justin Barnes Quartet, featuring the music of Herbie Hancock!
All right, we're going to dive in, and then we're going to talk about Herbie Hancock in just a few minutes. But let's start by playing a little bit.
Yes.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming and joining us tonight. This is a lot of fun for us. This is our first time back in quite a while. This is part of we're kind of doing like a little one-off here. This is a special show we're doing for Bob Hunter, who was one of our longtime members and subscribers here. Let's take a second and recognize Bob. Bob and Barbara would come here a lot. They've been avid supporters of this. This is called the Jazz Legacy Band, and we have been doing this once a month, one Sunday a month for how long has it been? Like 5 or 6 years? Yeah. So since high school. Yeah. We haven't started. We haven't really kicked off the new series yet. Obviously, we're waiting for protocols to kind of get set, but we wanted to at least squeeze this in memory of Bob. Tonight is featuring the music and the life of Herbie Hancock, and he obviously has such an incredibly expansive career. What we're doing tonight is we're only focusing on the Blue Note years. He spent several years recording for obviously the iconic record label Blue Note. That's where he got his first his break. Was on Blue Note Records. So we're going to just discuss the important albums that he recorded during that time. Before we dive into Herbie and his music, please help me welcome Mr. John Sanford on the tenor saxophone. Very special guest on piano, Mr. Kevin Bales. Kevin and I tried to coordinate the shirts. We got pretty close. This wasn't bad. And then on bass, Mr. Kevin Smith. So that tune, it was entitled Watermelon Man. That was a tune off of his first record, which we're going to get into in a minute. Herbie he was born in Chicago, grew up in Chicago, fell in love with the piano at a very early age, and basically when most kids were out running around in the neighborhood and playing games and sports and stuff, he just fell in love with the piano, and you couldn't get him off the piano basically in his preteen and teen years. He loved classical music, and he practiced it a lot. He got a couple of really good teachers. He even won a contest where he was able to perform a piano concerto with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in his teens, and he was essentially a child. No, well, not essentially. He's a child prodigy. He could hear it and then play it, and he developed this really passionate love for detail. He actually got to skip a few grades. He was so driven and smart and detail oriented. He got to move up a few grades, and he loved the sound of classical music. And as he was developing as a classical pianist, one of his peers in high school, they entered a talent show, and one of his peers improvised on the piano, just sat down and made something up. And that blew Herbie Hancock's mind. He was like, wait, you just sat down and just like made all that up? He had been so used to learning everything, perfecting everything from written music. So in his words, he locked himself in his room for the next couple of years and just he got a couple of Oscar Peterson records and Errol Garner records, and he just started to listen to the sound of jazz and figure out how to improvise. And I think it's safe to say he figured it out. He was going to be okay. So he developed that, and he started to really play jazz. He fell in love with jazz in his late teens and then into his early 20s. And he was playing around Chicago. And then basically, a Wally Pipp moment happened, which really launches his career. Raise your hand if you know who Wally Pipp is. Okay. So Wally Pipp was the first baseman for the New York Yankees before Lou Gehrig. So nobody knows who Wally Pipp is, and that's because he basically was going to be this great Yankees baseball player. He missed one game, and then Lou Gehrig never missed another game the rest of his career. Now we don't know who Wally Pipp is. Well, a similar experience happened to Herbie. Donald Byrd, the great trumpet player, was the star of this fairly new label called Blue Note Records. Donald had a band in New York, and they had a date in Chicago, and they were going to drive to Chicago. Well, the pianist at the time in Donald's band didn't make the drive because there was a huge snowstorm. and he didn't want to make the drive. So Donald had to find someone in Chicago, and the talk around town is this young kid named Herbie Hancock. And so Herbie played piano, and the rest is history. Then Donald said, "You have to come back to New York. Trust me, everybody's going to love you. I'm going to get you hooked up with this new record label called Blue Note Records. We're going to get you an album deal, and it's just going to be great." So basically, because that one piano player failed to make that drive. Remember this, John. Always make the gig, man. Don't be like selling it out last minute.
You miss one gig.
That's it. It's over. So Herbie then went back to New York, or he moved to New York, started playing, and then he did get a record deal with Blue Note Records. And in 1962, he released his first album called Taken Off. And a lot of the music on that record is going to sound like Donald Byrd. It's going to have that kind of classic Blue Note sound where everything is soulful. It's very danceable. The melodies are very singable. That was a lot of the music that he was playing with Donald Byrd. So his first album sounds a lot like a kind of a Donald Byrd record. And that first tune we just played was called Watermelon Man. It was on that record. It was a fairly big hit, and then Mongo Santa Maria, about a year later, re-recorded it, and it became a huge, sensational hit. The song Watermelon Man is written because particularly his first couple of records, what Herbie's writing about is his own experiences, his childhood experiences in his small scope of the world. And he has memories, as he says, of the ladies on his street, like trying to get the fruit vendors' attention. So they would basically yell out, "Hey, Watermelon Man." And the first parts of the melody to Watermelon Man is going, "Hey, Watermelon Man." So he was writing from his own personal experiences. He was also trying to write singable melodies and danceable tempos, all that sort of stuff that really helped popularize what we now think of as Herbie Hancock. So it was also right around then that another trumpet player by the name of Miles Davis heard of Herbie Hancock, partly on the recommendation of Donald Byrd. So it wasn't too long after this that Miles Davis picked him up in his group, and he went on to play for several years on and off with Miles Davis. The second record he did off of Blue Note is entitled My Point of View. This is in 1963, and even the title tells you he's still writing from his own personal perspective, trying to write very personalized stories. There's a song on there called Blind Man, and it's written about a blind guitar player on one of his street corners growing up in Chicago, and the song is basically written from that perspective. We're going to do a tune now off of that record. This is entitled "And What If I Don't?" And what if I don't? And what if I don't get the title right? guys so much. The sound of that song embodies those same sorts of qualities we're talking about with Blue Note Records and Donald Byrd. Herbie was early on heavily influenced by, it was a medium tempo, easy to clap along to, nod your head to. The melody is fairly singable. These are all like cornerstones of the great Blue Note sound, and that's where he was kind of developing as an artist. However, as he's developing as a solo artist, he's obviously playing now with Miles Davis. Miles Davis's band is really starting to kind of stretch the boundaries, and it's really allowing Herbie Hancock to kind of open up. And in this process, he kind of rediscovers his love for classical music, for arranging, for textures and colors, some stuff that maybe outside of like the rhythm and blues kind of sound that he was spending a lot of time playing. So he's listening a lot to classical music. He's listening to great jazz arrangers like Claire Fisher and Gil Evans, and this stuff is starting to seep into his music, as well as the exploratory nature of Miles Davis's band. So on Herbie's third record, which is entitled Empyrean Isles, this was released in 1964, Herbie starts stretching things out a little bit, starts pushing the boundaries for his compositions, as well as texturally, he's starting to really blossom. This is the first time we see Herbie go from like a really just kind of finger popping piano player to really starts to open up and blossom as an artist. So, however, on that recording, he's still hanging on to some of those early important influences and roots, which is things that are danceable, things that are singable. And really, this is a thread throughout Herbie's career. As advanced as Herbie was as a musician, as a piano player, as a composer, he could hear all these cool sounds. He could take a song into outer space. He was that flexible. One of the things I think that made him such an iconic artist was that he never really lost probably the most important thing about music, which is finding a way to connect to people. And connecting by playing music that is something you can tap your foot to. Melodies, when you leave here tonight, you can sing along to them. As advanced as he got as a jazz musician, he really never lost that. And we even see this on this record, Empyrean Isles. We're going to do a tune off of that record right now. And while so many things are starting to stretch out, this is the one he kind of like recenters himself with. This is a tune entitled Cantaloupe Island. So, and that really was his MO throughout his entire career, is being able to continually kind of come back to this center of trying to connect all people when he's playing his music. And this is something to this day is still his, his primary focal point, no matter how advanced and all these different areas that he could cover musically. He's always kind of trying to refine that center. So now he's been playing with Miles for a little bit longer, and now he's going to move into another record. This is one of his most famous recordings of all time. This is an album entitled Maiden Voyage. And Maiden Voyage was, he had delved a little bit into this on Empyrean Isles, but Maiden Voyage is an entire concept album. And if you're not familiar with the term concept album, the idea that every song is a piece of one story, in multiple different ways. And so this was a big thing for him. Every song has something to do with, going out onto the sea. It could be ship related, it could be sea related. There's a beautiful song on this album entitled Dolphin Dance. Obviously the title track, which is of course the first track on the record, is Maiden Voyage. But he covers a lot of really cool sounds and vibes on this record. We're going to do one right now. It's the part of the story where it gets the most turbulent and along the record. So this song, a lot of the sounds and shapes of the song are meant to be more turbulent. The song is entitled The Eye of the Hurricane. And this also kind of highlights something that Herbie was known for, which was he could write some incredibly difficult music that for him it wasn't that difficult. It's like, hey, you just do this. Come on, it's easy, guys. So you're gonna see a lot of furrowed brows up here, a lot of sweats, a lot of you'll see this number, and you'll be looking at the music very carefully, making sure we're in the right spot. So wish us luck. It's going to sound like a hurricane one way or the other. So here comes Eye of the Hurricane.
I'm thinking Hugo.
Hugo. That's old school.
That's right.
We go. 1, 2. We made it. Almost capsized a couple times there. Got a little water on the deck, but we made it. We made it. Yeah, so that was, again, off of an album entitled Maiden Voyage. It was a concept album. And it is, now we're starting to get to the point where Herbie's artistic vision really starts to fully blossom. He's gotten so much more experience as a composer, as a performer, as an arranger. He's kind of, firmly rooted in that kind of, rhythm and blues and jazz gospel sounds. Now he's going to start trying to incorporate more and more of the more modern arrangers, even some like Billy Strayhorn, just more textures and colors on top of his conceptions. He's going to start stretching out. He also, during this time, gets into soundtrack recording and scoring. Also a whole bunch of jingles. So this is in the mid to late 50s. He did the entire soundtrack for a movie called Blow Up. And he did and during this period he attempted to record his first funk album, but it didn't really go well, and so he kind of scrapped it and went kind of back to doing what he was at that point, was a little bit more where his heart was. But he wrote commercials for Virginia Slims and all sorts of random jingles in the 60s. You're probably sitting around. People were sitting around watching TV and having no idea that Herbie Hancock was recording all these chewing gum commercials and whatnot. But listen, you got to make a living, so get those royalty checks coming in from all those television spots. So, you know about those royalty checks there, Kevin Smith. I don't owe him any royalty checks, don't worry. I sell like 2 albums a year, so I usually he owes me money after these records are done. We're going to move on now. This is in 1968. This is an album, another concept album, but he kind of expands the album concept here. He's going to get into more sounds and colors and textures. The album is entitled Speak Like a Child. And on that album, most of the songs on there are somehow related to a childlike nature. There's a few songs where he's starting to be a little bit more socially conscious. Remember that early on in his career, he's writing songs from his small perspective in Chicago. Well, now he's been touring for years. He's been out with Miles Davis. He's toured the globe. His own consciousness has grown. He's a little bit more aware of what's going on. So this starts to enter his music here in the late 60s. So we're going to do the title track off of that record. A lot of really pretty textures and colors are going on. So he's going to move away a little bit from those kind of early blue note roots, but we're still going to hear lots of pretty singable melodies and really just complex and really subtle textures and things. So we're going to do the title track off of that. This is entitled Speak Like a Child. Thank you all so much. Yes, you can hear the colors and the textures starting to expand for Herbie. It had been there for a while in his piano playing and his improvisations with Miles Davis, etc. But more and more it's working into his compositional style here with Blue Note Records. A couple other great songs on that record, including one that he wrote for Miles Davis that he always called Miles the Sorcerer. There's a great tune on Speak Like a Child called The Sorcerer, and that's dedicated to Miles because he said his time with Miles, Miles would just say like two words that seemingly had nothing to do with what he was playing, and he would just make him like, why did he say that? And then like a month, he'd be thinking about it for like a whole month, and then all of a sudden one day it would come to him on the piano, and he would just like raise his level of playing, and he always just thought, like, how do you do this, Miles? How do you say like, three raspy words to me, and all of a sudden my playing like elevates? He sends me on these journeys. So a lot of respect there for Miles Davis. Again, he called him the Sorcerer. So now that he's moving, we're getting toward the end of his time at Blue Note. He's going to make one more record with Blue Note, and then he's going to kind of go off and do some more experimental things. While he's doing these more experimental projects, this is in the late 60s and the early 70s. Well before this, he had gotten into meditation, into Buddhism, and he found that these mantras really helped him kind of stay centered when he plays and in his own personal interactions. Well, during this period, kind of after Blue Note Records, he's doing some things, and his Blue Note sound had kind of like run its course, and he was trying to find something new to search for. So in his words, he's doing his mantra, and he's meditating, and he can't get this one song out of his head. And he keeps in meditation, you can kind of like let things pass by and get recentered. And every time he tried, he kept hearing, "Thank you for letting me be myself." And he's like, it was like annoying him that he couldn't get that stupid song out of his head. And all of a sudden he goes, "Oh no, wait a minute, this is what they're trying to tell me to do." So then he took that and said, that's the music that I should be playing. I should be influenced by James Brown and Sly Stone and all these great artists. And that eventually led to him his next big phase of his career, which is Herbie Hancock with the Headhunters. So all that Chameleon, all that great music from the Headhunters, that came after this Blue Note period. His last record with Blue Note is entitled "The Prisoner," and I'd mentioned how he had started to get out of his own, neighborhood and expanded his universe. And as he traveled more and more, and while this is 1969, this got released, and so while he's traveling the world and he has a chance to kind of look back on his own country and a lot of the social things that are going on in the mid to late 60s, he realized that he could go to some place and feel like, oh, this is great. I'm with Miles Davis and they're treating us like kings, and this is great. It's all this great, everybody's giving us crowns, and then I come home and then I try to just go to the grocery store and I'm reminded of my skin color. I'm reminded that as free as I feel, in some level, I still feel like a prisoner. So this album is dedicated a lot to that feeling. He's starting to put more effort into social justice, and he's going to use this final album on Blue Note to really get some of those thoughts out clearly. So we're going to close now with probably the most impactful tune on the record. Before we do, please help me thank one more time Mr. John Sanford on the tenor saxophone. Very, very special guest. He's just killing it. We're so happy and honored to have him. Mr. Kevin Bales on the piano. My partner in crime back here. He's got his mask on, so he's saying lots of snarky comments, but you can't see it or hear it, but trust me, I still can. John. Kevin Smith on the bass. Kevin Smith. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Just a little bit. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Again, this is called the Jazz Legacy Project. We're going to be doing this. We're going to hopefully get the series started here pretty soon. If you're interested, you can always, yes. Thank you so much for those of you who have been longtime supporters of that. It's so great to look out and see so many friendly faces. It's been way too long, and so we're excited to kind of get this going pretty soon. So we're going to close with, I think, one of his most important and most beautiful compositions off of the album, The Prisoner, 1969. This is entitled, "I Have a Dream." I'll say it for Kevin Bales, Kevin Smith, Justin Barnes, the music of the great Herbie Hancock. Thank you so much for coming out, spending your Sunday evenings with us. And now the owner of the Velvet Dome, Miss Tamara Fuller.
That's Justin Barnes and the Justin Barnes Quartet.
We miss them.
I know, right?
Jeez, yeah, we were just talking about it. It's like, yeah. Early Christmas gift.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Kevin Bales. Early Christmas gift.
Oh, nice.
What is Kevin Bales doing?
He just plays.
Oh, okay.
I love being here with Tamara. Let's hear it for Tamara.
Yeah.
I don't say this lightly, but there's so many venues who are struggling. And the fact that she is recognizing how much is important to support both the musicians, her staff, and the community, and doing this is very meaningful to all of us. Thank you, Tamara. And you guys are
We loved having you, and we'd love to have you again. You can find all our upcoming shows at thevelvetnote.com, including a week from, well, this coming Saturday, okay, so a week from last night, we'll be having our Halloween dinner party here at the Velvet Note. And the band is the Bosman Hart Band, so two leaders who have merged their resources together to put on one fantabulous show. And Bill Hart from the Hart part of the Bosman Hart Band is creeping back in the back there. Raise your hand, honey, so they know who you are. Jazz fusion guitarist extraordinaire. Happy anniversary. Would you all like to go home with each other now? My time here has come to an end. This is what we love to do, which is to bring you closer to artists who inspire you, closer to each other, and closer to the song that's in your heart. Come back and see us again soon. Come on.